I'm Marshall Dunn. I'm here at True Romance Sound over in East Nashville, working on my latest masterpiece. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to need an overdrive pedal for this one. Tell you what, give me just a second. I'll be right back. Just set that there. Oh, what a bummer. Unfortunately, if you play guitar for long enough, something like that's going to happen. It only takes a minute of being careless for some accident to happen with your guitar. Maybe it falls off a stand. Maybe your pet knocks it over. Maybe you forget to latch your case and it falls out. Things happen. Most of the time it's not really that serious, and a lot of this stuff you can fix yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the whole guitar and figure out what sort of damage I've done, and I'll show you some things you can do at home. And along the way, I'll give you some suggestions for items you can keep in your personal repair kit. Now luckily, I have a repair shop in the back of this studio, so I already have these things. But we'll go through and give you details for everything as we go. So let's take a look at the guitar and see what kind of damage I did. Right off the bat, I can tell you that my input jack fell in. I don't know if that was related to falling down or not, but it's something that's going to happen, so I might as well show you how to fix it. So we've got that. Looking at the rest of the body, I got a couple of dings in the finish here. I think we can touch those up a little bit. It won't be perfect, but it won't get worse. Everything on the back looks good. The neck looks okay. There's no cracks in the headstock. That's good. I do see that we've got a loose tuner here. That's something we can tighten up. And right there, really hard to see, but you can feel it and hear it. There's a nick in the fret. Looks like maybe the string caught it or something. That's something we can sort out. No big deal. Okay, first things first. I think let's tackle getting this output jack put back in. The first thing I want to do is take the pick guard off, so I've got a little bit of room to work. We're going to be working through this F-hole right here, so I want as much room as possible. I've already taken the screws off, just to make it a little bit easier for the filming. Okay, so I've got the pick guard off. This is going to help out a lot, because this job, we're going to have to work through the F-hole to get this jack back into place. To do that, I've got myself this little tool. It's really just a piece of heavy wire that's been bent. It's got like a little, end on it that's kind of like a helping hand. You can make these out of like a wire coat hanger, or you can buy them from most people that sell guitar tools. I got this one from StewMac. Pretty handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to grab the jack and pull it back to where it's going to be, and then use something like a screwdriver to go through the jack and just sort of bring it back up to where it's supposed to be. Then I can put the washer and the nut back on it. Okay. Now, full disclosure, it took me a couple tries to do that. And it probably will for you too. So be patient, don't freak out. It takes a little effort, but it looks like I've got it to where I can put the hardware back on. Make sure that you've got your washer and nut handy. So we're just going to put that on there carefully. And I've got just enough thread showing that I can carefully thread that back on there. If it takes too much force, you might be cross-threading that, and then you're in a much bigger problem, so just be careful. It should just go on naturally. So I have it on well enough that it's not just going to fall back in as soon as I let go with my tool. Okay, so now that we've got the jack back in, it's time to snug it up just to make sure it won't fall back in the guitar. There's several ways you can do this, but I found a trick that I like. This is nothing, I don't claim to have invented this, but you can use a drywall anchor. I'll set that right there so you can see it. But if you put the drywall anchor in the jack and tighten it, it actually kind of holds it pretty well so you can snug it up. You don't have to stick screwdrivers and stuff in there. And so all I'm going to do, just kind of gently push it in there. Don't use too much force. There we go. And I'm going to take a screwdriver, tighten this up just a little bit. That's going to expand inside the jack and hold it still. So I've also got this other tool. These are handy. They go by a bunch of different names. But anybody that sells guitar tools or parts will sell you one of these. It's basically just a little wrench you can keep in your guitar case. And I'm going to use that to tighten up this jack. You don't want to go too far, but that's pretty snug. Now we can take the drywall anchor back out gently, and we fix that. No problem. So earlier I said we had a nick in the fret. It's almost impossible to film because it's so small, but you can totally feel it and you can hear it. Hear that? That's not going to work. It's not that complicated to fix though. I've got some pretty basic stuff that I've put together so that way we can sort of just smooth that out, and then we're going to just kind of gracefully round them back over and polish the frets back up. It's not that hard. Just don't go too far, and I'll show you how far you need to go. First thing I want to do is take at least those top 3 strings off. I'll probably go ahead and just take them all off since it's about time for new strings anyway. So now the strings are off. You can see, well, you may not be able to see, but you can definitely feel that nick right there in the fret. That's going to cause you problems if you're going to try to play a solo or something way up here. Some of you do that. I don't. But, you know, we want the guitar to be playable. So, to get started, before we start sanding anything, I want to take a Sharpie and I'm going to mark it right across the top. That's my bad fret, right? So let's do these 4. And be careful with your Sharpie. A lot of people, when they're doing this, will use tape and mark off the fretboard. That's totally fine to do that. I probably should have done that, but I didn't. I'm just going to be careful. And what I will use tape to do, just regular old blue masking tape, is to cover the pickup. And I'm going to cover this part of the guitar right here. Now we'll talk more about the finish of the guitar later, but this is a brand new guitar with a very durable polyurethane finish on it. So putting masking tape on it, not that big of a deal. If you've got an older guitar or a nicer guitar with a lacquer finish, you might want to take the tape and stick it on your pants just to get some of the adhesive off and then tape it on there. But for this instance, this is totally okay. Now, I have made myself a little tool out of an old credit card. And I've glued some sandpaper to it on both sides. You can see I've got 400 grit here. And I don't know if you can see that. There we go. We got 800 grit right there. These frets don't have to be perfectly level. I just want to make sure that they're all on the same page. So what I'm going to do is start with my 400 grit. There it is. And just kind of gradually work back and forth across these frets until I see that nick go away. It won't take much. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on it. Now let's see if we can feel it. Yep, it's still there. You can see that it's taken the Sharpie off, which is good, and we're doing it evenly. This may take a couple of passes. That's a lot better. So I'll go ahead and mark it one more time. This is the fret with the nick in it. And we'll go back with the 800 grit, which is just a little bit finer. It's going to remove a little bit less material. I don't want to take off a whole bunch of material on the frets. I just want to bring it down a little bit. Now I do want to say that this is not a substitute for a full fret level and crown. This is just a quick fix for if you accidentally break your guitar and you need to play it some more. If you have major damage to your frets, I would suggest getting in touch with the local repair tech and maybe discuss a full fret level, recrown, whatever they need. But this is, again, I just want to emphasize this is just a quick fix to get your guitar playing again quickly. And this is something you can do at home. So with the 800, we'll go back over it. And I'm taking the Sharpie off of the frets really evenly, actually. It looks really good. We'll do one more little pass. You can even go side to side if you want. I'm going to switch back to the 400 here for just a second. And I want to make sure if I sand one fret, I'm going to do all of them from here down so that there's not one that's sticking up. And then I'm going to do the last 4, and then the last 3, and then the last 2, and then the last one all by itself. that should keep the frets going down like that instead of ramping up, which would give you problems. So I pretty much got rid of the nick. You can still kind of see it, but you can't feel it, so that's important. So now I think we're going to reshape the frets just slightly. Since they're now flat on top, I want them to be rounded over. So before we do that, one more round of Sharpie. All right, so we've got them marked. I think it's time to round over the frets a little bit. It depends on how deep the ding actually is. Ours isn't that bad, but I still want to show you how to basically kind of recrown your frets, lightly, just so that it still feels good when you play it. To do that, I've got a file. It's a triangle shaped file, and the edges of it are ground smooth. So we can run this along the fretboard and only touch your frets with the file. So that's what we're going to do. We're basically just going to start on one side of the fret and gradually round it over, and then start on the other side of the fret, gradually round it over. The goal is to leave a little bit of this Sharpie on there. That way you're not actually changing the height of the fret itself, just changing the shape of it. So we'll start with this side. Go slow, it doesn't take much. It just takes time. And as I go, I'm gently turning the file into the top of the fret. Now it is leaving some marks on the fretboard, but we're going to address that here in a second, so don't worry too much about it. Now we'll do the other side. Same idea. Gradually roll the file to the top of the fret. And if you did a good job with your Sharpie, you can actually tell where you're taking the material off. So we've got these frets basically shaped. I'm going to take a little piece of 800 sandpaper that I got left over, and I'm just going to kind of smooth them out just a little bit. We're not going to use too much pressure. I just kind of want to clean it up and smooth them out. So we've got the gouge out of the fret. We've recrowned them just a little bit, and I've got them smoothed out. It looks nice. So just to polish it, I'm going to take a little piece of steel wool. This is super fine steel wool. And I'm just going to lightly go over the whole fretboard and polish everything so it looks the same and it plays nice. So now that we've got them polished up, I will admit there are some marks left in the fretboard. This isn't a perfect job. I just want the guitar playable quickly. So that's all we're really focusing on. I will, however, put just a little bit of fretboard oil on the whole fretboard just to condition it. Since we've got the strings off, there's no harm in that. And that should help a little bit. We'll just wipe it in and let it sit for a minute. And as far as fretboard oils go, use whatever you like. I use just very simple mineral oil. That's all you really need. But you can use lemon oil, any sort of conditioner you like. So we've let the oil set for probably 5-10 minutes. So we're just gonna kind of wipe off the excess so you don't get everything all greasy. And then we're pretty much good to go. We'll go ahead and take the tape off. All right. On to the next part. So if you remember when this thing fell over, it knocked one of our tuners loose. The screws aren't really, they're kind of wiggling in there. I don't really like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the tuner off, and we're going to replace some of the wood that's in there that got kind of wallowed out, and then we're going to put the tuner back on, and I'll show you how to do that really quick. First thing, get you a screwdriver, and we're just going to take the tuner off. Now you can see it's not too bad. The holes aren't terribly widened out, but we're going to go ahead and fill them in anyway, and then put the screws back in. So a really handy thing to keep in your toolkit is toothpicks. And all we're going to do, I'm going to clip the end of it off. And all we're going to do is we're going to take the toothpick, shove a little bit in there, and then we can just break it off. Same for this hole. Since I've already broken that into the toothpick, I'll just use this one. So there's a little bit more wood in here now, something for your screw to bite into. But just to be safe, we're going to wick in a little bit of super glue. Now I've got this stuff, it's fill and finish. You can use any kind of super glue that you like. This is a water thin super glue, so it's going to soak in really well and not create too much of a mess. I'm just going to do a little test to make sure I got the flow right. And I've got, I don't know if you can see that, I've got this really cool sort of like a wick tip on that. That's going to help you put the super glue exactly where you need it, because trust me, you can make a mess of this really quickly. So just go slow. A little drop is all it takes. A little drop right there. And a little drop right there. So I've let the super glue dry for just a little bit. We'll go ahead and just put this tuner back in. And it's as easy as putting the screws back in. That's really all you got to do. Go slow, use hand tools. There we go. Good to go on that. So you may be able to see here, this is our last problem that we had from our little spill. It's a little nick in the finish, and something else that super glue is really useful for is sealing up a finish damage, just to make sure it doesn't get any worse. And that's really all I'm going for here. I don't want it to look perfect necessarily. I just want to make sure it's not going to get worse. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take some masking tape and cover up the parts of the guitar that I don't want super glue on, which is going to be right about there. So we've taped off the part of the guitar that we don't want glue on. Keeping in mind, this is a brand new guitar, and it's got a very hard, very durable polyurethane finish. All this repair is going to do is just to make sure it doesn't get worse. And I say that because this probably isn't something you want to try on an older guitar or a guitar that has like a different lacquer finish. You may not get the same results, and you could be altering the value of the instrument, and that's not something you really want to do. If you think you might have something like that, call your local repair tech and get their opinion. But considering that this is my guitar, it's brand new, I put a chip in it, I'm just going to take care of this really quickly. So we'll just make sure that I've got control over my super glue, because all I want is a little drop. And I'm just going to touch a drop on there just to sort of fill in the chip that I made. And you can see that, you know, the color changed a little bit, which is good. That means it's soaking in. I'm just going to let that dry. And once it dries, it'll be nice and hard, and it shouldn't chip off. So in the event that you get a little crazy with the super glue and you put too much on it, I almost put too much on there just to be completely honest. I don't really care that much because it's mine and I'm just fixing it quickly. But if you wanted to trim it flush so that it looks a little bit better, you can always take just a simple razor blade and trim it down like that, and then you can polish it back out to whatever shine you want. For this one, I probably will just leave it alone because this is just a player guitar. Other things are probably going to happen to it. So okay, I think we've got all the basic stuff taken care of. None of it was that major, and to be honest with you, none of this work is perfect, but it's good enough to get me back in the studio, which is where I want to be. As a guitar player, you know, things like this are going to happen, and it's handy for you to have a couple of basic repair skills, you know, ready to go just in case you need them. So all I've got to do, put strings on this, I'm just going to make sure it works, and then I'm going to get back in the studio and keep recording. And while we're at it, I think I'm going to leave this off, because it's a lot cooler that way. Besides, George didn't have one. Well, until next time, I'm Marshall for Premier Guitar.